What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sit Down. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of the very interesting discussion in the comment section below. If you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet, or you're living in Iraq and seeing this video for the first time, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sit Down video. If you're also on TikTok, make sure you check out the Sit Down on TikTok, where we cover past and present crime on a daily basis. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into another very interesting organized crime topic, and it's back recently to our bread and butter. Today, we're going to talk about what this individual, John Ragano, aka Bazoo, is up to as he fights for his life currently in a federal trial going on in New York City. You've got to hear what this guy is up to and why this further shows us that the mafia is a battered brand in New York City. The story next on the sit down. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you a little bit about Franzese wine. Recently, for a limited time, we are promoting the new vino from Michael Franzese. And I got to tell you, who doesn't like a red wine, right? You're eating a plate of rigatoni, or maybe you're out with your wife or husband on the porch and looking for a little pick me up. Well, Franzese wines got you covered. Many wines speak grapes, few speak legacy. You can get a 94 rated bottle, one of the highest rated bottles of wine you can find, for a pretty cheap price. In fact, most wines rated this high go for $50 to $100. Franzese wine goes for 20 to 30. You can buy Franzese wine right now online. It is directly shipped to your door. It'll look just like this. It's a very sharp bottle, an offer you can't refuse. So we're taking something out of the Godfather book. You can also get Franzese wine in stores. If you live in states such as Michigan, California, New Jersey, Illinois, Ohio, go get yourself some Franzese wine right now. Let's get in to our scheduled program today, folks. And we're going to talk about John Ragano. John Ragano was born, and I'm going to get into his biography a little bit, tell you a little bit about who John Ragano is and kind of the criminal he is, quite frankly. This guy's been in jail a lot of his life. If I told you he was Gene Borrello's mentor, would you believe me? And him and Gene got into some big time hijinks. Ragano was born on April 6th, 1962, and came up in Queens. At one point, he grew up in Rockaway. It was also said that he lived in Ozone Park. And the truth of the matter is, John Ragano for years has been a pit bull enforcer for Vincent Asaro. A lot of the things that Vincent Asaro did in the late 90s, 2000s, even into the 2010s, we can see Ragano was very involved in those activities. Now, Ragano has kind of a sad story, and this may be one of the reasons he turned in as such a criminal. At the age of 16 in 1978, John Ragano's father, Carmine, was shot and killed by police after a traffic incident in Ozone Park. According to what I know, John Ragano's father was a welder. He got into some sort of issue with the police, these two transit cops. It was said that he supposedly pulled a weapon on the cops, and Ragano's father was shot. It was said that he actually found his father lying in the street. Now, just 2 years later, at the age of 18 in 1980, Ragano was charged with attempted murder of a police officer, plead guilty, and get 8 years. Now, throughout his time in the streets, Ragano has long since been a loan shark, extortion artist, but also an earner and enforcer. This guy did things he had to do to earn. He wasn't a flashy guy making tens of millions of dollars in carding or demolition. John Ragano was out in the street doing what he had to do. For many years, one of his chief ways to make money was armed robberies, whether through crews or just through doing it himself. In fact, in 1999, he was convicted of a kidnapping in an armed robbery of an Ozone Park accounting firm. He allegedly tied people up and demanded security codes to their homes. He would get 10 years and was released in December of 2007. Again, This is a guy who was out ripping and running, doing what he had to do to earn. He wasn't making the big money, but he was creating capital. He was making money. He was stealing tens of thousands of dollars of jewelry and cash and diamonds, doing what he had to do to survive. Ragano, though released in 2007, would eventually become a made member of the Mafia in approximately 2011 or 2012. We can figure that Vinny Asaro was likely the person that promoted him for membership. He had always been the pit bull enforcer for Vincent Asaro. He would actually also be arrested with Vinny Asaro in 2014 in that infamous Lufthansa heist connection to a racketeering case that both Bazoo, Ragano, and Vinny Asaro caught. In that case, Ragano was hit with extortion charges and received 51 months. He would again, Ragano, be indicted, this time in 2021, regarding his behavior and an indictment with the Colombo crime family. We remember in late 2021, the hierarchy of the Colombos, Mush Russo, Castellazzo, Di Matteo, Teddy Persco, all those guys were jammed up in a federal racketeering case. One of the charges alleged that in the indictment, John Ragano led a scheme to issue fraudulent workplace safety training certifications. Ragano allegedly operated 2 workplace safety schools in the New York area that claimed to provide OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, training courses and certifications, along with various state certification to construction industry workers. Now, rather than provide training, Ragano, alongside his business partner, John Glover and Dominic Ricciardo, would falsify paperwork to the U.S. Department of Labor and 2 other government agencies, which represented hundreds of workers that had supposedly completed required safety courses, when in reality, they had not. They would just pay these guys an amount of money and get phony OSHA certification. So we can see this is extremely dangerous, right? These are workers that are working on high-rise buildings. They're putting in things that are being then sold to the public. Like, do we know how dangerous this is? So let's say you have a worker that's working on a union and he's like not actually taking the required courses that he needs to do his job correctly. It's incredibly damaging and concerning. Now, that comes directly from the indictment. Now, Ragano allegedly, well, in fact, pled guilty to also using the schools to conduct meetings involving members of the mafia and to store illegal fireworks and illegal drugs that they packaged to sell. So, again, Ragano back to his old tricks, finding ways to earn. This is what a mobster does, and he has not learned. Again, I've tried to tie this into all of you folks in 2024. These old school mob guys, they can go to jail. They're never going to stop doing what they do. Okay, people like Ragano are dug in. They're mob guys. They're never going to go be and do regular jobs. They're just not. Now, for this stunt, Mr. Ragano would plead guilty and get 57 months in federal prison. So again, living life on the installment plan. Ragano has spent a lot of his adult life and frankly, teenage life in prison. Now, Ragano was initially would agree to report to prison in July of 2023, July 10th, actually, of 2023. Now, 5 days before he was scheduled to report on July 5th, 2023, Mr. Ragano would show up to a salvage yard where he was looking for a person called Vincent Martino. According to this indictment that he's currently facing and on trial for, Mr. Ragano allegedly gave Mr. Martino $150,000. So he would show up to this salvage yard looking for Martino. At one point, he would say, quote, "Don't forget, I now know where you're at." Now, Martino was supposed to pay Ragano $2,050 in interest a week. And it had become a problem for Martino because not only did he owe Ragano, but it was said that he owed nearly $200,000 to the Colombo crime family and loan sharks in that group. I guess from what I understand, around 2020, 2021, Martino encountered a lot of problems due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So he went to the mob for help, started doubling down, and didn't have the money to pay. So Ragano goes to the workplace of Mr. Martino and wants his money. Now, according to the case, they began talking about the loan, but that if we go back to the case that Ragano pled guilty on involving the Colombo crime family, Martino was also involved in that indictment. And Martino asked Ragano about the whole case. Ragano would state to him, quote, "Come here. What's going on?" Martino would respond, "I got to end this thing." Ragano, "What do you mean end it?" Martino, "Because you fucking snitched on me, bro." Ragano, "I snitched on you?" Martino, "Yeah." Ragano, "What are you talking about?" Martino, "You gave me up on the weed case, bro." Ragano, "I gave you? Get the fuck out of here. What are you, losing your fucking mind? Are you trying to get stupid on me, bro? Is it what you're trying to do?" Martino, "No." Ragano, "How the fuck are you going to tell me I snitched on you on the weed case? What are you, losing your fucking mind? I'm going to jail for 57 months. At that point, Ragano would shout, quote, "Okay, well, then take off your fucking shit right now, my man. Take off your fucking pants. Let me see. I want to see." Now, as we know, John Ragano is not a homosexual, though he wanted to see that Martino was not wearing a wire. Again, I'm not sure why he assumed. Does John Ragano not know they don't use the wires like hanging off like the 80s? They don't strap it to your chest, John. They put it in like a watch. There's no way it's going to be seen. So Martino, who I want to add, by this point owed so much money to the mafia, he decides to, guess what? Flip. And he is wearing a wire. That said, he knows that he's not actually wearing a wire. It's somewhere on his watch or somewhere where Ragano would never know. So Martino complies, takes off all his clothes and says, "See, I'm not wearing a wire." Ragano then agrees and says, "Okay, you were right." Though he was actually wearing a wire and the whole conversation was recorded. So, this is the issue with some of these old wise guys. They don't get that, like, technology has changed considerably. And look, this is going to be a big problem. Now, Ragano has decided, even though he's already in prison for that 2022 case, he's taking his chance. He's not accepting a plea deal. He is going to trial. And the trial is going on currently in New York City. And one of the chief witnesses against him is Vincent Martino. Now, I'm not quite sure why he's not taking a plea, even though he's already taken pleas. It's not like he's like a John Gotti disciple and never taking pleas. He doesn't take pleas. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I definitely feel like they probably have him pretty much dead to rights here. We'll keep following the case, and I will let you know when there is a resolution. I do have someone that will let me know when this case is good to go. But the truth is, John Ragano is going to go to prison for a foreseeable amount of time, and he is 62 years old. My guess is he will be in prison till his 70s. This could be a life sentence for him. He's not 34. He's not 42. Now, I want to connect this back to Gene Borrello because according to what I know about Borrello, Ragano was a bit of a mentor to Borrello at one point. And actually, I asked Gene, I reached out to him and said, tell me a little bit about Ragano. And I found out that Gene Borrello and Ragano actually did a home invasion together. Now, in and around the time Ragano was arrested alongside Vinny Asaro in the mid-2010s, Ragano was supervising young mob associates that were taking parts in armed robberies around Ozone Park and Howard Beach. So remember, Ragano is a soldier in the mafia at this point. He is overseeing people like Borrello because, again, he's connected to Vinny Asaro. Also involved in these home invasions was a person called Frank Nunziata and a person called Frank Chapola. According to what we know, at one point, Borrello got the drop on a time when a man called Robert Bam Catrone would be going to work. Catrone owned an auto body shop in Queens and was also said to be a mob associate. Ragano found out that this guy had a ton of money and jewelry in his house. So he, alongside the three young associates, go to this guy's house, and what would ensue is pretty bad. According to one case, Borrello waited alongside those guys in Ragano for him to leave Catrone for work. They then walked into this home, dragged his fiance out of bed, tied her up, ripped a Cartier engagement ring off her finger, and looted the house of $50,000 in cash and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. Now, she's not the only person Borrello terrorized and nearly frightened. According to a Howard Beat resident who called the time served sentence for Borrello once he flipped a disgrace and called him, quote, an animal. From what we understand, a lot of this was assigned and oversaw by Mr. Ragano. So Gene Borrello has a long history with Ragano. In fact, some of the reason Mr. Ragano had to plead guilty in 2014 was likely because of some of Gene Borrello's behavior. That said, I'll let you know what goes on with this case as it plays out in federal court. Just a quick one today. Wanted to talk a little bit about this playing itself out now. You look at mob guys today, there are two problems that they have. They're not real up on technology. And number two, which is more important, they just don't have a lot of panache anymore. I mean, if you're a loan shark debtor, you're not really scared anymore. You're just going to go to the cops. Back in the day, that didn't happen. It's happening now. Bazoo Ragano is pretty much on his own at this point. Vincent Asaro is dead. And the Bonanno crime family is beleaguered. We'll see what's next with John Ragano. We'll see you next week here on The Sit Down.